gained experience in handling the machine. I found that I could stop for a day, an hour, or even for a second to observe.
And you've used my machine to escape the ends of
I
justice.
must congratulate you on that device. I confess that at dinner the other century, I thought you'd lost your wits. But fate intervened and forced me to ascertain for myself that you are truly the Columbus of a new age.
I've covered!
Trial by stone.
Trial by stone! Holy cat. Hey. It's almost...
Yeah. Almost a perfect...
It is. It's round.
We finally got one.
We found a flying saucer.
He ain't tying me up.
Then I'll have to kill you, child.
Then kill me.
I mean it.
I guess you do.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Mugwump Tower, this is Albatross 1-3, requesting permission to land. Over.
I don't need a computer to tell me how to land a damn airplane.
6.
Heads-up display. Check.
5,
Lasers. Check.
4,
Particle beam. Check.
3,
Photon bolts. Check.
2,
Chair control. Check.
1. Let's do it.
Broadcasting from a secret underground location somewhere in Mos Eisley. This is the Docking Bay 77 podcast. Make yourself comfortable. The show is about to start. Hello and welcome to the Docking Bay 77 podcast. I am your host, Dayton Johnson. Well, welcome to January, and we're having another series for this month. Last January, we did Sci-Fi Month, and it did really well. We covered movies like Forbidden Planet and Planet of the Apes, The Last Starfighter, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We picked one film from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it did so well. We're going to do that again. So we are covering a film from the 1950s first. The other films to follow include The Time Machine from 1960, Time After Time from 1979, The Dark Crystal from 1982, and then we're doing a Versus episode. It is The Thing from 51 versus 82. So tonight we are kicking off the series with a film from 1954, the Japanese kaiju movie that started it all, Gojira, better known as Godzilla. Let me introduce the guests that I have joining me this evening. Former Suncoast and Picture People employee, it is Dana Jacobs. How's it going, Dana? You might want to try that again because your audio didn't come through.
Out bad, dude.
That was too loud, probably.
Yeah, you probably were.
Oops.
That's okay. He tried to yell and it didn't work. So I'll drop the video on Patreon so people can see. And college friend and artist that can now add Danny Trejo as a list of fans. It is John Wright. How's it going?
It's going well, man.
All right. Opening thoughts on Godzilla. So include any personal history you have with the franchise and any initial thoughts on the film. So Dana, why don't you go first?
So first I have to give a shout out to one of my best friends, Justin Wright. He's a huge Godzilla fan, so I bet he's gonna love this episode.
Cool.
Honestly, I remember watching it one time, like way back in the 90s, and just being pulled into it and knowing that there was a huge, like a lot of sequels to it, but I did not know how many.
Right.
Even for something that was as old as it was, and I'll talk about this more later on, this is really well done for 1950s Japanese cinema.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't perfect by any means, obviously. And, I thought like, wow, that's a really bad suit. It was stuff like that, but it was entertaining. It was
Yeah.
actually interesting, and it was really hard to find an English dubbed version of it. Like even the version I watched was still subtitled.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one I watched on Mac was subtitled. So, which is fun. I kind of like that. So, all right. Awesome. John?
Godzilla and I go way, way, way back to my childhood. Obviously not this movie because I assure you, if you are a casual Godzilla fan, you've probably not seen this particular version of the movie, the original version. You've seen the very sanitized American version that was released 2 years later and intercut Raymond Burr in stand-ins to make it look like it was the same production. This is a totally different movie. I think the first time I saw this version was probably in mid 90s. I think they released a box set with a 56 and a 54. And it was the first time that I had actually gotten to see it. But I have been a huge Godzilla fan since I was a little kid, catching it on like the afternoon movies when they would occasionally have sci-fi movies and stuff. So really excited to talk about this one.
Cool. Yeah. Like you, I was familiar with Godzilla as a kid, a big TV watcher. So it always seemed to be like over the weekends, especially in the summer, it seemed like, but there was always like that creature feature, and there was always, a Godzilla movie running. And of course, when you're a kid, you're like, this is cool. And then you also think it's fun because of it's a suit, you don't care. And even, they kind of pay homage to it in, One Crazy Summer when they have that scene. If you know, you know. But I knew, Mothra and Baby Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla, and Rodan, and I knew all of the different ones, and I loved all the destruction delivered by this giant lizard suit. It was a lot of fun. I was initially excited for the 1998 remake, and about 45 minutes of it was good, and the rest of it was a dumpster fire. Oh, well. The 2014 version by Gareth Edwards was the last of the modern versions I've seen, and I did enjoy that one. And I am excited to see, after all the good things I've heard about Godzilla -1, I'm really super excited.
Amazing. It is amazing.
That's what I've heard. So I'll sit down and find time to watch that. And to John's point, this actually was my first time watching the 1954 Japanese film. And the first time I sat down to watch it, I got like 20 minutes into it. I was tired. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work because I had to pay attention to the subtitles. So I'm glad I sat down later during the day when I was more awake and watched it because I saw a lot more. Yeah, it's done very well for the most part. There are things that don't make sense, and I will mention those later. But I, like you guys, I am super excited to discuss it. All right, let's move on.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
It's time for That's the Fact, Jack. These are some film facts about the movie, and also I have some trivia. So, John, why don't you hit us with some facts?
Well, in 1954, Toho, the studio behind Godzilla, was originally planned to produce a movie entitled In the Shadow of Glory. It was going to be a Japanese-Indonesian co-production. The film was going to be filmed in Jakarta. It was going to be the first time that Toho had a major production outside of Japan, and it was going to open up markets for Japanese films in the Southeast Asia. Producer, forgive me if I stumble on some.
We're going to butcher their names. There's no doubt.
Tomiyuki Tanaka flew to Jakarta to negotiate with the Indonesian government, but it was very unsuccessful. The film was scrapped. On his flight back to Japan, he conceived an idea for a giant monster film inspired by the 1953 film The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and the real-life incident involving the fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon 5, which I'll go into more detail here in just a couple minutes about that. The Lucky Dragon 5 took place just offside the Marshall Islands. It was after we had dropped, or America had dropped the H-bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Right.
Testing a new H-bomb with a capacity of being 750 times greater than those dropped on those Japanese cities.
Jeez.
Warnings went out to the boats in the area, but somehow the Lucky Dragon number 5 did not receive the warning. They were 100 miles off the coast at the time of the detonation and were covered in nuclear ash.
Oh, jeez.
6 months later, the radio operator of the boat perished, and his dying words were, "Please let me be the last victim of nuclear war."
Wow.
Tanaka was inspired by that. During his flight home, he wrote an outline with a working title, "The Giant Monster from 20,000 Miles Beneath the Sea." And pitched it to the executives at Toho. It was approved in mid-April of 1954. Interesting thing about this is Toho originally intended the director from The Shadow of Glory to be the director of Godzilla. He was booked to a previous project. They approached other directors, many of whom passed, feeling the idea was stupid. But it was initially or eventually ended up in the very capable hands of, and I just lost the director's name. I apologize. My notes got jumbled up. So it ended up in the hands of Ishiro Honda, who, along with Takio Morita, locked himself in a hotel for 3 weeks and rewrote the script.
Nice.
Honda toned down much of the political criticism, especially in the opening, because he felt it was inappropriate to use the full-on Lucky Dragon 5 incident and wanted to depict Godzilla as an invisible fear. After the film's success in Japan, Toho sold the rights to America for $25,000. A heavily altered version of the film was released in the US and worldwide with the title Godzilla, King of the Monsters on April 27th, 1956. This is probably the version that most of us are familiar with.
Right.
Canadian actor Raymond Burr interacting with body doubles mixed with Honda's footage made it seem as if he were part of the original Japanese production. And many of the film's political themes were trimmed or removed completely. It was this version of the original Godzilla film that introduced audiences worldwide to the character and the franchise, and the only version to which critics and scholars had access to until 2004.
Wow. Very good. I do want to mention that the two the romantic leads, I guess, Hidito and Miko, they actually appeared in a lot of the sequels too after this one. So they come back quite a bit, which every time I look at the actor that plays Hidito is Akira Takarada. He reminds me of, I think it's Lightning from Big Trouble in Little China. He has very similar facial features and structure. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, there's no way that dude is the same guy. So, because I'm like, there's no way. But anyway, but yeah, I thought that was interesting that, you click on them and they're like, the next 5 or 6 movies. So, all right. I do have some trivia I want to mention. The Godzilla roar is iconic as hell. And so I'm going to read this how it's here. The director, the film's music director, and I'm not going to try that name, came up with Godzilla's roar by rubbing a coarse resin-coated leather glove up and down the strings of a double bass and reverberating the recorded sound. I love the Godzilla roar and scream. I think it's awesome. Speaking of Godzilla himself, it got so hot in the suit that the actor Haruo Nakajimi would frequently faint. The temperature inside the suit got to 140 degrees, and they would frequently drain up to 1 cup of sweat out of the suit. That's gross. The film actually has some very famous fans, including Akira Kurosawa, George Lucas, John Carpenter, Martin Scorsese, and Steven Spielberg. Due to the complex nature of the production, the entire film was storyboarded. This was a first for a Japanese film, and since the design of Godzilla hadn't been decided on, the look on different storyboards varied depending on who drew that particular one. It actually holds the record for the longest running movie franchise with 37 sequels. That's crazy. Take that, George Lucas. Anyway, so does anybody else have any other trivia they want to share?
I got a couple of interesting facts. Some of these, I know you guys go on like interesting news. I'll go on like little goofs. So
sounds good.
One is actual, we talk about run times and screen times on this. For a movie that was an hour and 38.
Yeah, it's right around 90 minutes.
30 hour. hour and 36 minutes. Godzilla only shows up for 8 minutes and 44 seconds, like on screen.
Yep.
It's like the shark from Jaws.
Exactly. Yeah. And surprisingly, this is about what, 20 some odd years before Jaws.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So going with some spoofs and continuity issues. So here's an interesting one for it. Several times throughout the movie, they refer to the Jurassic period as being 2 million years ago. Dr. Yamane, the leading Japanese paleontologist, should have known that this was off by about 143.5 million years.
Whoops.
Yeah. Another we'll call this one an anachronism. Trilobites. They did not live during the Jurassic period. They actually lived during the Cambrian period, which was about 300 to 400 million years prior to that. So they didn't show up at all. And then just a few little continuity goofs on it. There's a scene where Godzilla actually bites down on a TV tower and it bends it in half. The next scene, you see the tower falling over and it's not bent at all. Then they actually, for the close-ups, they used a hand puppet. And if you look really close at it, the eyes, the hand puppet versus the full-on bodysuit, the eyes are totally different.
That makes sense.
So you actually see a few things. And then there was one, and I was watching it today, and I caught it like last minute. It was when Amiko, it was seen with her. She was like sitting down, and she went to stand up, and you could see the editing mistake because one scene she's sitting perfectly, and the next scene she's like like in a frame, she's like standing up and turning around and walking away. It's like, okay, but I mean, 1954, Japanese cinema. Okay, we'll give it some leeway.
Well, and at the time, it was actually the most expensive Japanese film made.
Yes,
and it did see adjusted dollars to today's money. It would actually, the budget was still only $9 million.
It was 30 times more expensive than the average Toho film.
Right, which is crazy. Which is absolutely crazy. But and you think about that now. How many films are actually made now on a budget of $9 million? That's just it's like nothing. That's crazy.
Indie movies, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. All right, John, do you have some trivia you want to share?
Well, the suit, you were speaking about that earlier. The actual suit weighed over 200 pounds.
Oh, God.
It was very difficult to move in. So they came up with a brilliant selection. Geez, words are hard. A brilliant idea.
Yes.
They cut the suit in half and added suspenders to it with rope. So when you see Godzilla's feet, the actor is only wearing the bottom half of the suit. When you see the upper part of Godzilla, the actor is only wearing the upper part of the suit.
What about when you see all of Godzilla?
Well, then he's wearing all of it.
And then they drain out, a cup full of sweat.
There were actually 3 actors involved in wearing the suit.
Jeez.
One was just a teenager, believe it or not.
Wow.
But the one you mentioned is the most famous and had done the most versions of Godzilla on screen out of any of them.
Wow. That's just crazy. All right. Any other trivia before we move on? Nope. Cool.
That was totally wicked!
It's time for That Was Totally Wicked. These are things we love about our film. So, John, what's something you love about Godzilla?
What do I love about Godzilla? If were this any other Godzilla movie, I would say that I love the campiness and the kung fu almost aspect of it, because that's what those films started to turn into. But what I really loved about this, and it took a few viewings to really, really appreciate it to the depth that it's intended, but there is a lot of social commentary within this film.
Yeah.
Doing the research on it and looking into it, this was done just 10 years after the droppings of the bombs in Japan.
Right.
And it was done 2 years after the American occupation of Japan ended. And during that time frame, up until 1952, Japan cinema was not allowed to do anything that spoke negatively of the occupation or America.
Right.
Because they were so censored due to their use of propaganda during the war movement. So the fact that this director had the balls big enough, to take a monster movie, something that most of us look as being goofy and silly because we go there with our bucket of popcorn and our extra large soda and just want to see shit get destroyed. And this guy actually put subtext behind it and made
Yeah.
Godzilla a metaphor for nuclear war or the American occupation forces or what have you.
Right.
And it's really, really well done.
Yeah, there's definitely the science, versus government, which, we see even now. And you also have the workers, the guys that were on the fishing boats and stuff. So there's, that, we can't, then you have the government saying we can't tell everybody that this is happening. And then you have the other people say, yes, we need to tell everybody. So we have, uh, the quote unquote people that know better telling, trying to keep information away from the civilians. And to your point about the bombs, there's that one scene when they're on the bus and the one lady's like, I gotta find a shelter. It's like, I survived Nagasaki, and now I have to, find a place to live now because of this too. So that was, a nice, shot there. So yeah, you're right with, it's a monster movie, but there actually is a little bit of depth to what's going on the screen as well. So that's, good call out. All right, Dana, something you love about the film?
Oh gosh, where can I begin on this? Well, I'm not going to touch too much on the social background because John did a pretty good job. Aside from the fact of there's that underlying theme of like, what else can we end up doing? I mean, there's that line he has at the end that's like, yeah, they did this H-bomb underwater, and he was the last of his species. How long is it going to be until we find another Godzilla? And it was kind of like that. Without shaking your finger and being like, haha, don't watch what you do. It was doing that. But I mean, that'll be all I say on that part. There are so many other things about this movie that were great. So there's the one scene that sticks out in my mind, and I'm not going to call this my favorite scene because I got other things for smiling. It's my favorite. But no, what I thought was really awesome that they did is the scene where they're in that little village after they see Godzilla, the big reveal, the top half of them,
right,
and they're down the thing, and then they look over. They have that shot over the beach. I didn't see it at first because black and white, kind of hard to see it. But when you really look into it, not only did they have the footprints, but if you look at it, you see the swish of the tail into, and that was just one of those little fine details that they did. And again, 70-year-old movie that they're really being that thorough on it. The other things that I kind of liked, like you had mentioned earlier, it's like, Jaws, you don't see the shark that much. You don't see him that much in this. It's just the way they did it. They almost made it kind of scratch the surface of a horror movie. If you look at it through certain respects, there are scenes that Godzilla just breathes fire and kills people. And it's like, whoa.
It was so awesome, though.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, absolutely. But there was that kind of, where they call him a giant monster. Yeah, it was a monster movie. He was terrorizing these little fishing towns.
Right. Well, and it's funny too because the also asked the question, who's more of a monster, the people that created him with bombs or the monster that's just trying to be, and it becomes like, yeah, he's stomping through, Japan, and then it's like the old guy on the island, Noto Island, was talking about how they used to sacrifice, young women to this. I'm like, and so wait a minute, when it ran out of food, giving it one person was enough to keep it away. And I'm just like, that's kind of creepy and cold and everything. And they had the dance, which was, those masks were interesting, but a little too phallic. Anyway, so just saying. But it was interesting how they kind of brought back they brought up the whole, the legend of this creature. And so that was kind of cool. But you sit there and go, well, because even the science, even that one guy, I can't remember his name, that creates the oxygen destroyer, it's science versus, nature, like which one is actually truly worse, which one's, being evil. And so, yeah, there's a lot. It's surprisingly deep for the film it is. So that I do like that. But mentioning the lightning, I'm sorry, I love that how his scales on his back light up when it's charging, and then he blows it out and then just tears people up. And it was actually the second viewing that I noticed one of the first fishing boats. Actually, I think it's the very first one. They all kind of turn their head, and I didn't realize it, but they're getting blasted.
Yes.
I thought it was just them getting caught up in him coming out, but no, that's our first shot of
and that's
breath.
the reference to the Lucky Dragon 5.
Yeah, which is cool. Yeah, because I'm like, because I didn't know at first. I thought it was something else, but yeah, that was it's great. It's fun, and the oxygen destroyer. What a interesting idea of a weapon. Like when we actually see what it does in the fish tank, man, that was sick.
Yeah.
Ew. Anyway,
and
all right.
1,000% inaccurate.
Well, whatever. See, come on. You're still, I mean, once you realize, we'll get to some more of those a little bit later. So,
well, okay. So I'll just leave it on there. I would expect it to drown them before it dissolved them. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Well, maybe so, but it was still cool.
Yeah.
All right. John, something else you love about the film?
They are cheesy by today's standards. They really are. But at the time, some of the stuff they did as far as special effects in this movie.
Yep.
The matte paintings, the like Dana referenced the footprints and the tail switch. That was a matte painting.
It looks good. It looks really good.
He also referenced the wires, they're the towers when he's taking down the towers. They made those out of wax.
Right.
And hit him with a light to get him to fall over like that when Godzilla breathes his radioactive breath on them and stuff like that. The composite photos, and granted, the first time we see Godzilla, it's so obvious it's a hand puppet,
But for 1954, it looks good, man.
But it's great. I mean, even if it doesn't look great, the miniatures stand out like a sore thumb, but they're great because that's what we expect in a Godzilla movie.
But I honestly, some of the miniatures actually do look really good. Like during the especially at the opening during the storm, a lot of that looks pretty good. And even when the first fishing boat's sinking, that looks pretty good. So all things considered, the miniatures are really solid when they create the whole city and everything else. Yeah. So, no, I like the miniatures. They're done to, to pretty good effect, honestly.
They're great. And what's funny about downtown Tokyo as a miniature is that the director and others were walking through downtown Tokyo. Like they really wanted to get it accurate.
Right.
So they're taking all this reference material and stuff, and they're like, well, we're going to burn this building down, and this one's going to get destroyed, and the fire's going to spread over to this one. And a cop overheard them and actually pulled them to the side to figure out what the heck was going on. And the only thing that saved them was they produced their Toho ID cards and explained that they were there scouting for a film.
I love it. I love it. All right, Dana, something else you love about the film?
You guys have already touched on a lot of it. Most of the blending of the matting, the miniatures, the hand puppet, and everything like that. But there was any of the scenes where they show the ocean, they see I almost said Jaws pop out of the water, Godzilla pop out of the water. It's kind of comical because he just kind of pops up, like looks around and all that. It does look. I mean, I'm guessing that was one of the hand puppet scenes because it did not look like someone in a suit. It looked like someone with a hand puppet and just kind of like looking around. But you get all these. You were talking about the special effects. I mean, yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, yeah, when he breathes fire, it's just like fog or mist or whatever it is, but it's fire because then you see the building burst into flames, and you don't have to explain any of that. But yeah, it's just for the quality of what we got for the time frame of when it was produced. That's one of the things I love about this movie. Even everyone says that you guys say that the sequels are campy. I didn't think this one was that campy. This one was
this one
really
is not.
No, this one's not.
This one had a really well developed like story. Thought there were plot holes in it and everything like that, and some kind of questionable storytelling and all that stuff. But for what we got, this thing was damn good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right. Anything else we love before we move on?
The soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
It is perfect for this film.
Very good. I need to give it another listen because I didn't. I mean, I guess I should say I didn't notice it that much, but I guess it's kind of good in a way. But yeah, it didn't over. It wasn't overpowering. But yeah, I'll have to go just listen to it that way instead of trying to read the subtitles and stuff and just listen to the music.
Oh yeah, the score for this movie. I mean, if I was to compare, modern day cinema scores to 1954 cinema scores, no, hands down, way better. Yeah, they did so much with so little, and that's what impresses me about it.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's move on.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
It's time for No Sir, I Didn't Like It. These are things that don't work or we don't like within the film. So Dana, something that doesn't work for you?
Oh, this is a tough one. So I have to get a little kind of nitpicking on this one. The thing I don't like was the scenes where he was attacking the city. I understand why they chose to do it at night, but they were so dark. I'm like in the middle of the afternoon, all the bright lights around, and I'm like squinting to try and see everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe if they had just like given a little ambient light from like the fires he was setting, it would have given it a little more ambiance. Yeah, I know I'm kind of setting a mood with this. It would have given a little more to it, and actually would have kind of made him a little scarier, to be truthful. If they had like little fires burning down on the set and they kind of lit up, Godzilla from underneath and all that, that would have been pretty cool. But that's what kind of disheartened me about it, is I'm sitting there like squinting to try and watch the movie in the dark.
Yeah, I noticed that a couple times too. I'm thinking, this is the Criterion version. Why can't I see some of this stuff? All right, John, something doesn't work for you.
Oh, this is a big one, actually.
Okay, I have a few that are kind of big.
And it's the love triangle.
Yeah,
Ogata, Miko, and Shirazawa. It seems very forced,
unnecessary.
Very unnecessary.
Yeah,
I mean, actually, Ogata is. If you took him out of this movie, it wouldn't affect a thing.
Yeah, that's true. He's just kind of there. I mean, well, it's his shipping company.
It's his shipping company.
His sailing, his ship. Yeah, so it's fishing company.
But other than that,
that's true.
The acting in it is between the three of them when they share the screen together at the initial first meeting is borderline soap opera-ish.
Yeah,
that's the best way I can say it. It's just not. That's the one thing about when Godzilla movies try to be serious, and we've seen that in some of the more modern ones, where they try to inject a serious tone into it and put that human element into it. It has to be, you got to walk a really fine line. And these guys trampled over that line, pulled out their erasers, erased the line. And, it just seems really ham-fisted, and it doesn't work for me. To me, it doesn't add anything to the story. And Ogata, it just has these times, Godzilla's trampling the village or something's going on. And he goes to Miko's father and says, "Today's the day I'm going to ask your dad to marry me." if I can marry you, it's like dude's got the worst timing in the world. It just
You're right. The entire, not just Ogata, but that entire romance was unnecessary. Completely, just like
it would make more sense if either one of those two were like right in this, in front of the danger. Like if they were actually like at one point they do actually go out on the boat to go out to the island, but nothing happens. You know what I mean? You think, oh, something's going to happen to the boat or something, but it doesn't. So nobody actually is ever put in direct danger for us to really care what happens to any of them. So that, they're just there to help us tell a story. They could have been siblings. They could have been just, I mean, it didn't matter that there was a relationship at all.
Not in the middle of it, at the very end, like the last scene where Ogata and Serizawa, they both go underwater to, the O2. Yeah.
Oxygen destroyer.
The oxygen destroyer. Yeah. They absolutely were in danger in there.
Well, then, so it just took to the end of the friggin' movie.
Which, by the way, I'll even say now that you're fresh, another little thing. It just kind of ends. Like, there's it's just like the movie.
Yeah. All right. No,
but yeah,
agree.
there was that whole. I agree with you, John. That love triangle unnecessary. Ogata. Yeah, I'm gonna say names wrong too. I thought he was kind of like just. He was kind of like an extra that they're like, oh, let's give you some lines.
It's like, oh, he's handsome. Let's have him talk. So, all right. So, I have a few things. So the first thing I want to bring up, because it just seems so ridiculous and silly. This is like towards the middle of the movie when we've already seen Godzilla show up, right? And it's dangerous. People know it. What the hell is that party yacht doing out in the water? It's like they're out there all dancing and everything, and then they're surprised when he shows up. I'm like, did you think he left? It's and because of that, so to me, there's no sense of time.
That's because
because had it been months since they saw him, so like, oh, it's safe, or I'm going to move on to my next point because this one's ridiculous. So they make such a big deal about bringing all these different representatives from other countries. We saw all the planes land and all this other stuff. And you think, oh, they're going to have this big debate, this discussion, how to handle this, what should they do? And then they get to the room where they have this, this discussion, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to build a, electrocuted fence. And that's what we're going to do. I'm like, okay, well, where was the debate? Where was the discussion? Why even show all these, planes show up? And then how long did it take to build it? Because I'm sorry, that would have had to take weeks to get those built. It just seemed like, oh, they're done. It's been 24 hours. They're done. I'm like, where's the passage of time? I don't understand. So,
the rationale behind an electric fence too. I mean, the creature survived an H-bomb. What do you think an electric fence is going to do to it?
I know.
Piss it off.
That's exactly what happened too. That's exactly what happened. And those planes couldn't hit the broadside of the barn with their rockets, man. It's like he's right there. He's the only right there in the middle. They missed him every single time. I'm like, come on, guys.
Then when the fence fails, what do they do? Shoot it.
Yeah, they just let's just piss him off. And the scientist says, just don't do it. You're just going to make him angry. And
exactly, it's like
that's what happened.
Mongo and Blazing Saddles. Don't shoot him. You'll just make him mad.
So
love it.
I'm going to make probably one of my darker jokes here, but. We're going on maybe 10 years after the end of World War II?
10 years after the dropping of the bombs, yeah.
Yeah, after dropping the bomb. Okay. Kamikazes? Could we see a couple of those?
Jeez, well, they probably would have missed too. So I don't know. I mean,
we get that technically in -1, so...
Well, I haven't seen that.
To see that, yeah. Now here on -1, here's a little thing. They did a black and white version of that too.
Yes, yeah, I know. Yeah,
I want to see both.
They're releasing that in a 4-disc set from the Godzilla US store in January. It'll have both versions of the film.
Right.
And I know, Dayton, I know you're a big fan of physical media and all that stuff,
yes.
But I did come across it on Apple for $10. And I was like, oh, why don't I get it?
Well, let's hope they don't lose the license. Anyway, so one other thing I want to mention. So, Dr. Yamani, or however you say his name, he's I like him, and he's supposed to be really smart, but there's some things he does that are incredibly stupid. Number one, when they're investigating the village and the water shows to be radioactive, and he's just digging around in the water, and he picks up the trilobite, and I'm like and they go, oh, you shouldn't, you be careful. So he puts it into a plastic bag, but then keeps digging into the radioactive water. I'm like, what? Just what? The guys with the Geiger counters are all covered in suits, not him. And then he's upset that they're trying to kill Godzilla. Okay, I understand that. It's an incredible creature. He wants to study it. How do you study it? What do you just kind of? What do you do to study him? I mean, he's not going to sit there for tests. I don't understand what. It's like, what do you mean study? I don't understand.
It's not like you can observe it in the wild either, because it's wild is like thousands of feet under the water.
Yeah, and when he comes up, he stomps all over Tokyo. So there's like moments. But anyway, so those are mine. So all right, Dana, anything else that doesn't work for you? Anything you want to mention?
Not much of we haven't already touched base on. It's like some of the acting was a little wooden and all that, but again, 70 years ago.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. All right, John, anything else you want to mention?
There's one little thing that it just cracks me up every time I see it. When they encounter Godzilla for the first time at the hills, and they take his photo, and they have the briefing afterwards.
Right.
They point to what's supposed to be the photo of Godzilla, and it's clearly a painting of this representation of Godzilla looking over the hill. And the thing is freaking smiling.
Right. He smiled for his picture.
Right. Right. I don't dislike it. It cracks me up every time I see it. And
yeah.
We've said technology was somewhat limited back there, but come on, guys, you could have done a little bit better than that.
What cracks me up is when they hear that he's on the other side of the island, everybody runs. Oh, let's go see.
Exactly.
And then when he pops up, everybody turns around and runs away from him. It's like, run away. I'm like, why did you run at it? And just whatever, and not that people wouldn't do it. Let's be honest. People wouldn't do that, run at the danger and then, oh, wait a minute, let's run away. So, but no. Okay. Cool. Anything else anyone wants to mention before we move on? Nope. All right. We're going to take a quick promo break and hear from some of our podcast friends. And when we get back, we're going to hit some favorites and give this film a rating.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?
Turn your dial to find the frequency of the past.
Captain Midnight.
Where the classic stories of mysteries, sci-fi, thrillers, and suspense are found waiting to be heard once again.
Another case for Nick Carter, Master Detective.
You'll find a variety of those stories here, in their original form, where each episode takes you to another place or time.
The Man of Bronze, Doc Savage.
But only when you find the mystery frequency. Available everywhere.
The Shadow knows.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we are finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments, too.
You can find the All 80s Movies Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Please subscribe and happy listening.
Why are you smiling like that? I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
Fine.
All right, it's time for Smiling's my favorites. These are some favorite things from the film. First of all, favorite scene, John.
It takes place when Godzilla is destroying Tokyo. There's a young woman in an alley with her 2 children.
Oh, yeah.
And they are scared to death. They are frightened to death. And this young lady keeps looking at them and telling her kids, it's all right. We're going to go where daddy is very soon.
Yeah, that's
God,
dark,
it is
man.
a powerful scene.
Yeah, it actually is.
So well done.
Yeah.
So well done in this movie. I absolutely love that scene.
Wow. Well, my choice sucks after that one. So Dana, you can go ahead and go now.
I can go for some less frivolous stuff.
That was good, man. All right, go ahead, Dana.
I would say the first reveal. When they're all going up that hill, and all of a sudden you see the head just kind of come up, because I kind of have an inkling of how to do it. I still want to know how they did that, because that little separation from the top of the hill and Godzilla's head and all that was, I mean, I'm sitting there like, this is 1954. How did they do that? That was really well done. I mean, I'll admit it's a hand puppet, but I'm talking like the separation.
It looks good. Yeah.
That's great.
Between the two of them, I'm like, damn, they did a good job on that. And it's just that, it's the first time we see Godzilla,
right.
It just kind of like that, just that scene, sits there.
All right. Very good. So mine's actually towards the beginning of the movie, and this is on the island when that storm comes, and then we hear Godzilla go stomping through the village, and the house gets ripped off, and somebody gets killed, and so the storm and the models and everything looks really, really good, and the reaction when the one guy runs out of the house and just we he goes out the door and you can see the storm. So all that stuff put together, all the elements put together, really looked really good, all things considered, and it was a powerful scene. And then we get to see when the scientists come to visit the village, you get to see really what happened to it, So that was pretty cool. So that was my favorite scene. All right, favorite character, John.
Oh, hands down. I'm cheating like hell on this one, but Godzilla.
Well, all right. Can't argue with that.
If I have to pick a human, I'll say Serizawa.
All right,
because he's very much an Oppenheimer in this film.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Oppenheimer, excuse me.
Yeah, that's true.
His acting and stuff when he's not involved in the love triangle is actually not bad.
Right.
He's got a compelling backstory where he was injured in the war. He's invented this device. He's afraid it's going to fall in the wrong hands. He wants to use it for good, but for some reason can't figure out, he called it an oxygen destroyer. How are you going to use something that's by the name destroyer? How are you going to use that for the benefit of mankind?
Yeah.
But again, that could be something in translation. So we'll cut him a little bit of slack there.
That's fair.
But,
all right.
Yeah. Now, as far as human characters goes, definitely him.
All right, Dana.
Non-human character, Godzilla. Yeah. And I actually have to go with John Serizawa. I actually enjoyed it, but for quite a little different twist to it. So take away all of everything he wanted to do good, take away his intentions and look at him, look at what he created, look at what he did, and then just look at his aesthetic. And I'm sitting there like Bond villain right there. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, good point.
Like an oxygen destroyer. I mean, that sounds like something a Bond villain would come up with. His gold throat in the water and all that stuff. Why put that aside? And then the eye patch. I mean, oh my freaking god! Could you create any better possible Bond villain?
Yeah, that.
He was my favorite character for everything that you put into that, though. I mean, yeah, his acting was good. The character development, I mean, it was okay. But, he ends up saying, well, here I go, YOLO, and just sacrifices himself at the end.
I love it. So mine is actually Dr. Yamane, because you could actually see his struggle on his face. He does emotions pretty well. I still don't understand how he's supposed to study Godzilla, but at the same time, I understand him not wanting them to kill it because it is an important species. He was easy to like. Yeah, he didn't quite understand the differences in the different periods, Jurassic and everything else, but that's a writing issue. So it's like he wants to understand the monster. He wants to try and figure out what benefits it can bring. But like I said, he's a sympathetic character, and I think that's why I like, because he's kind of the only one I think that in the entire movie that's really because the other ones are just kind of there to scream or react. So, but yeah, Dr. Yamane is my choice. All right, I'm looking forward to these answers. Your favorite giant monster film, John?
Currently it's going to be Godzilla -1.
All right, Dana.
Until I haven't seen -1 yet, so that might take it over, but at the present moment, it's got to be this one.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot that they've done good with Godzilla in recent. I know you said you haven't seen anything. You haven't seen anything past the 2014 version.
Yeah, that was the last one I watched.
Yeah. The first Godzilla Kong movie was actually pretty well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, not perfect, but this one still is probably the best of them all. I mean, after this, they started getting campy and cheesy, and then Godzilla and Mothra, they're teaming up to save the world, and then the once we introduce like Godzilla Jr. and all that, it's like, yep, okay, we jumped the shark.
Okay, guys, it's not Junior, it's Godzuki. Let's get it straight.
Godzuki.
And rumor is that's not his son, that's his nephew.
Oh, okay, all right.
But I don't know. I don't know how they came up with that.
Yeah,
yeah. And I'm sorry, they didn't jump the shark; they jumped the megalodon. Okay.
I still remember. Was it one of I can't even remember which movie it was, but when Godzilla slides on his tail, I'm just like, what the hell is that?
Oh, that is great. That drop kick is awesome.
Anyway. Okay, this is going to be unpopular opinion that I don't give a shit. My favorite giant monster film is Cloverfield. I love that movie so much. Found footage and just the, similar to this one, similar to Jaws, the slow reveal of the creature. You know what I mean? And I just really dig that. So, and it was just well done. And to this day, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'd much rather watch that than some of the other recent, Godzilla films. So, but apparently Godzilla -1 is on my list to watch for sure. All right. Final word and rating on this particular film, rating of 1 to 5 film reels. So, John, anything you want to say and what's your rating?
Well, I will say again, this is the version that most casual Godzilla fans have never seen, and it's definitely worth your watch if you're if you are invested in this character. Godzilla has an interesting arc throughout his 37 movie career. He goes from destructor to savior to destructor again to comic thing, and this is the heart of the character, and a lot of what's portrayed in this movie is why I keep singing the praises of -1, because they're very similar in tone. So that being said, this movie, despite its 70-year age, holds up incredibly well. Again, you're going to have to overlook some hand puppets and some oddball effects, but they did the best with what they had. I'm going to give this a solid 4 reels.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right, Dana.
A lot of the same things what John said. I mean, this movie was not the first giant monster movie, and unfortunately King Kong has it beaten by 21 years.
20 years, yeah.
But it's definitely the movie that set the tone for giant monster movies. Obviously, it did start the kaiju movement, the Japanese giant monsters. Definitely well ahead of its time in production quality. Yeah, even still with the limited technology, um, it did a really well done job of storytelling. You know, having that social commentary, the warning about, you know, watch what we do to our own planet because you don't know what you're going to release from the depths. I mean, there's so much to it that, honestly speaking, this is a movie that, if it's not, it should be added as a must watch in any like film 101 class in college, because there is so much to learn from this movie.
Yeah.
And just putting it together and everything there. So um it is definitely a must watch for everyone at least once. Even if you don't like it, just watch it just to see what they could do 70 years ago.
Right.
Then I agree. I give it a 4 reels.
All right. Very good. All right. So I do agree with you guys. It's definitely worth a watch. There's a lot of good things about it. It does look good, especially for the time period. And you know, think about what this started. I mean, hell, we got a kaiju film from Guillermo del Toro with Pacific Rim and stuff. So, I mean, it started a lot of things, some good, some bad, and apparently bringing it back, you know, years later, it still has that impact. It does have its problems that we mentioned. For me, it's 3.5 film reels. So I don't love it quite as much as you guys do, but at the same time, I'm not upset that I watched it. And in fact, I'm glad it was picked by the group and for us to put it to kick off this series. So good choice. I don't remember who exactly suggested it, but somebody in our chat did. So there you go.
You know, I'm also really glad that Criterion Collection took it in their own, because I mean they're really picky about their movies, and this is one that I think even if they're like, you know what, all the other 37 sequels after it just blah, whatever. I mean, this was just, perfect for the time period, for what it was, for the production value. I got to give it to Criterion for picking this one up too.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, Godzilla is a cultural icon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yes, he does.
he's
how big is that star? How big is the footprint?
It's not 165 foot like portrayed in the movie, but he's there's influence. This movie's influence is seen on everywhere. This franchise's influence is seen everywhere, from Steven Spielberg to Kiss, for crying out loud. Gene Simmons' boots are Godzilla.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I never put that together.
They are. They are
cool.
Supposed to be Godzilla, So, I mean, you can't deny that. And that's why this film is so important, because whether you like it or not, whether kaiju's are your thing or not, this is a part of history. This is a part of cinematic history.
Yep.
And like Dana said, it deserves to be looked at and appreciated for what it is.
Yeah, he left pardon the pun, such a footprint on pop culture that you see him everywhere, and people love him. And reiterating on one of John's previous points, he's gone from like destructor to human friend, to destructor to human friend, to human friend that actually accidentally destroys everything along the path. It's one of those things where it's like it's just. You sit down and you watch it, even when it's campy and you just want to kind of like, oh my God, this is horrible, but it's not that bad horrible.
It's so awesome that it's that horrible.
Yeah,
it's the thing about it.
It's a train wreck. It's so bad you've got to look twice at it.
You can't turn away.
No, you can't.
All right. Well, good kickoff to the series, gentlemen. I'm glad we got to watch this one. And it is streaming on Max for those who want to check it out. And there is a Criterion version available if you wanted to spend the money to buy a copy. But definitely check it out. It's fun. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
And a special thank to our listeners for spending time with us each and every week. It does mean quite a bit that you choose us. So thank you very much. Rate and review the podcast. If we see the review, we will share it on an episode as well as on social media. And chat with us on social media. Let us know what you think about Godzilla. Have you seen this one? Are you going to check it out? And share the podcast on social media, because more people, more better. If you want to help out the podcast in other ways, you can come on over to Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive content. Some recent episodes include the Pixar film Turning Red with special guests Lauren and Russ. And then also recently, the film Yesterday, John was on that episode along with Def Dave and Mike Vermillion. And coming later in January, the Miyazaki film Spirited Away will be coming soon. So a lot of good content over there. We hope you check it out. I did mention the rest of the episodes coming the rest of this month, so looking forward to that. Now, later this year, we are doing a new series called Disney Through the Decades, where we focus on one film from each decade from the Walt Disney Studios, the animated features. But we need some help with our 1970s choice. So make sure to check out the poll that's going to be, or is currently on Patreon. We'll also put some on social media. Help us pick the film we will be discussing for the 1970s. Some pretty good choices there too. So do yourself a favor, watch more movies. And remember, physical media is better than streaming. The Docking Bay 77 podcast is produced and edited by Dayton Johnson. Recorded with Rode Pod mics, the Zoom PodTrack P4, and edited on Audacity. Opening music provided by Eric Jason Brock. You can find him on YouTube and Bandcamp. Thank you for listening.